last 3 games. Yes, against the Packers and against the Jets, they came back third, fourth quarters, and they nearly came back to win the games. But there is something not right in Dallas. Now, Jerry Jones has spoken today. He said, we have a lot invested in Jason Garrett. He's evolved in what I call a top coach. He brings a lot to the table. He said, with regards to this being a season where Jason's on the hot seat or not, he said, it's not a thought I am having. Yes, he has said, though, that if Jason were to hit the market, so to speak, he believes he would be a very sought-after head coach if available, which is, I found an interesting comment. But yeah, there's a lot of people talking about. Look, they got 2 very talented young coaches there. One of the Richards in particular, it's surprising he's not a head coach at this point already. So perhaps he's waiting for Garrett to finish out his contract, because if you look at some of the clips on the sidelines, I mean, there was this very famous one that was going around of all the players avoiding Jason Garrett after the game against the Jets. And something that worries me about the Cowboys, and I've said this before, is there doesn't seem to be a great deal of camaraderie. They just look so down, they're so quiet on the sidelines, and they can't keep relying on these late-game comebacks, especially when they come up against the tougher teams. So Jerry Jones may be saying this isn't a season where Jason Garrett's on the hot seat. I'm not sure if I entirely believe that, especially with 2 talented young coaches in the ranks at Dallas already.
All right, let me give you my take on that. Well, we have another 2.5, 3 minutes to go on this one, too. I definitely agree with you. I think Jason Garrett could definitely land someplace, especially if you have a situation where they need to develop a quarterback, because Jason Garrett was a pretty good one himself. And anytime you're in a lame duck situation like he is in, then without a doubt, he's looking over his shoulder. So, Jerry Jones is a very loyal person. But, yeah, it's certainly a very difficult situation knowing that, your contract hasn't been renewed and the Cowboys have not achieved their goal, and he has had a fair amount of talent to work with. But, again, you're talking about an owner who's heavily involved. So, let's have a little bit of fun with this while we have another 1.5 or 2 minutes to go. Let's just say, hypothetically, Garrett isn't there anymore. Do you have 1 or 2 potential landing spots that you think he could probably end up going?
Yes, I was actually going to say, how would you feel about this? Obviously, being in Jacksonville yourself, you mentioned that the Jags aren't necessarily hitting their stride at the moment. If Marrone doesn't finish the season with the Jags or isn't there next year, what about Garrett there? They've got a young QB that needs to be coached properly. Perhaps they look at him there, and perhaps he'd be the sort of guy that they need for Minshew.
If I were going to speculate with one name that I think could be in Jacksonville, this is just one name that I think, I would have put Mike McCarthy in there.
Former Packers
coach.
So I can definitely see that as well. Definitely, yeah. Especially because it's a tough one. What they can do once Foles is back? I can't see any other teams looking to trade for him with that massive contract he's got as a backup. So it's a tough one. What are they going to do there with Minshew? But Minshew, I think he's certainly at the moment he deserves to keep that spot.
Well, yeah, I think right now they're in a position with Minshew that they can afford to keep him in there because they don't know what's going on with Foles, so they have time to do that. That's something that we'll talk about at a later date, but it's definitely food for thought about the fact that you can keep Foles around for a year or two because there will be a quarterback desperate needed team, and the Jaguars will hold out for whatever they want. They just showed that here today with the situation that they did, and that was by getting what they wanted for Jalen Ramsey. So, don't discount the football decision makers in that organization. They're pretty smart, and they hit on some of their draft choices this year. So, it's interesting, and I like covering the draft for them up there as well. So I guarantee you'll get the breaking news from me when I'm up there if I find any draft information. So anything else you want to add?
I'm looking forward to it.
Anything else you want to add? So you on Thursday you're going to carry over the XFL stuff, because I think that'll be pretty interesting stuff. And we'll go into more detail.
We've got the first day of the XFL draft today. There have been a lot of moves, a couple of surprising moves at that as well, and so it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next day or so to finish it off and who ends up at what team. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of familiar faces in that league come the end of this week.
Yeah, and we'll focus on that. I'll make sure we have enough time to cover it thoroughly. So, all right, Anthony Wood, as usual, thanks for doing an outstanding job, and we'll look forward to doing this in around 48 hours from now. Any closing thoughts with Anthony?
Just a real quick thought. If Tannehill struggles and they don't seem to trust Mariota there in Tennessee, what about when Foles comes back, they entertain the idea of trading him to, say, the Titans? Maybe that could be an off-season trade, too, given that the deadline may have already passed by the time that he returns. But, it's just an idea to throw out there. They could also look towards the draft next year, towards getting another quarterback in Tennessee. But I mean, Foles could be a fit there. The Jaguars have to eat some of his salary, but that remains to be seen.
Yeah, the only reason why I would have a hard time seeing that is I don't think they'd want to trade him within the division.
That's true. That is.
But
true.
that was the only thing. Otherwise, that would be a logical destination. So, but good point by both of you guys. All right, with that said, okay, Anthony, we'll do it again in 48 hours, and let's do a little bit of research on the XFL side since they involve some former NFL players. All right, Anthony?
Looking forward to it. Thanks very much, Jim.
And once again, well done, Anthony. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you Thursday. Thanks. All right. So with that said, okay, let's talk about some of the...
Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Appreciate it. With that said, okay, let's talk about that. I know that the Foles idea would be probably an interesting one, but I don't know. I don't see that one happening.
I mean, hey, if Andy Dalton, decides to walk away after this year, just given how, bad Cincinnati's been, and they have a minus 62-point differential as far as what they've allowed and what they've scored. But, he could possibly be a fit there, too. Again, it's what you just, were touching on. I don't know if a team wants to, give a quarterback 3 years for $66 million. That's pretty much what he'll be owed after this season. But you're going to need somebody. And I honestly, at this point, Dalton's not a bad quarterback. I think he's a little older and he's been in that system a very long time. I think it's just time for a new face. I think, as good as he can be, it's not helping that they're 0-4 on the road and they're just 0-6 in general. This is one of the worst starts the Chiefs have gotten off to in the last, say, 20 years. I saw a note today. I think this is their first 0-6 start since the early 2000s.
Right.
And it's not productive, but maybe Nick Foles, who has a history of coming in there and having some success right away, could bolster some of the profits for them or the fortunes for that team moving forward. Again, the contract is the only thing that really stands in the way of that.
Yeah, but in the NFL, that's the big thing that stands in the way because they do have a hard salary.
But
cap.
at the end of the day, the guy is. I genuinely don't think Nick Foles is a backup quarterback. I think he is. I'm not going to say he's among the elite quarterbacks in the NFL, but I think he's a mid-tier quarterback in this league, and I think he could help a team, especially a team like the Bengals that have been in flux.
Yeah, I don't see him going to the Bengals, though. I really don't see him there. But again, you know what? We can speculate it all we want, and I enjoy going back and forth with you on these kind of things, so I think they're very, very interesting.
Maybe he goes to the Washington Redskins, a team that, they're
unsure. Now that's a different story.
They're unsure of their quarterback situation.
Well, they've been unsure of their quarterbacks for a long
while,
time.
Ever since Kirk Cousins left, and then even before that with Colt McCoy there.
The Redskins have found more ways to mismanage that situation, whether it's a coach, a quarterback, or whatever. I definitely see your point, though. But I don't know if the Washington Redskins know how to mismanage anything. They've certainly they're the epitome of doing exactly that.
They're one of the most poorly run organizations in the NFL, along with the Jets. Another team who could be in that discussion as well, given their struggles. But I genuinely think that they like Sam Darnold a little bit too much to really go part.
No, they got their quarterback future there. But you know what? One of these days, you and I can go ahead and spend a little bit of time talking about potential fits for a certain place.
It's an issue I think that has prevailed all NFL season. I think, wouldn't you agree with me?
Well, I think the one spot, believe it or not, is if Baker Mayfield continues to struggle, I could actually see Nick Foles as a Cleveland Brown.
And I'm going to say this, and I understand it's only been a few weeks, but he really hasn't looked impressive, and that rookie year wasn't all too fun in Arizona. Right. But maybe,
he's got diarrhea of the mouth.
Maybe Josh Rosen winds up, saying bye-bye, and Miami goes after him. But again, the biggest thing, like we've already highlighted, is that contract. It turns a lot of teams away. I genuinely think 15 teams would legitimately be interested in Nick Foles, given, his ability. But again, once he's already gotten the money, it's the same thing with Kirk Cousins, who did have a good game last week. I just think it turns a lot of them away. But there's gonna be some team that's gonna do it if Minshew continues to play well. Say he builds on these last couple of weeks of struggles, and he goes on a 3-week run where he looks great. I think that'll solidify his status as the starter moving forward, and they're gonna have to start looking at options, without Foles and just moving on from him.
Just remember one word as we continue this debate with me and you. Okay, desperate. Mm-hmm. Whatever team is desperate will spend the money.
Yeah,
that's all I can tell you. They will be desperate.
And it's not even about spending the money. I think
desperate.
It's just about taking on that contract.
Desperate. They'll take the contract if they think he can win and they think they're close enough. There's a team that will take him.
It's
fun. I could actually see him, believe it or not, going to Tampa.
I was just about to say that.
I could see that.
I was just about to say that, and I'm glad you agree with me because that situation is so in flux. We saw Jameis's game in London the other day. He threw 5 interceptions, and he fumbled twice, and he was sacked like 4 times.
Right.
It's been a struggle. I mean, I don't care that he threw for 400 yards. It doesn't matter.
No. I can see Tampa.
It doesn't matter. I think.
Plus, it's not only that, it's out of the conference. They don't have to face them once every so
Yeah, I mean, Winston is becoming a slightly better version of what the Raiders had with Jamarcus Russell about in 2007. He's just not the quarterback that they thought they drafted when the Raiders took Russell out of LSU and Winston out of Florida State. I just think, a lot of those guys just don't seem to pan out. And Winston, thus far, it genuinely hasn't panned out.
Well, I consider him a bust.
Absolutely. Considering, he won a national championship and he'll always be remembered for that, but so did Tim Tebow. Although I'd argue that Winston has a little bit better of an idea of the quarterback position than Tebow did just because of Tebow's, style of play. We kind of saw it with Asher O'Hara this week, and I know we'll get back to FAU, but very mobile quarterback who, his arm's not the best, but, he relies heavily on the ground game to kind of, get the job done. And that's kind of what was Tebow's undoing. It wasn't Winston's undoing, but...
Wow. He's a bust.
Yeah.
He's a bust.
Yeah, for lack of a better word, he is a bust.
There are lots of busts, and he's a bust.
And unfortunately, the NFL, we see that a lot more. That's just because of how small a sample size you really have to produce.
Yeah, well, again, it's a league that you have to go ahead and you have
to produce right away.
Everybody's basically Lewis on a 1-year contract.
Yeah, absolutely. Unless you're Tom Brady, but at this point, I'd argue he's on a 1-year basis because of his age.
Yeah.
I
wouldn't go there.
The defense has bailed him out.
Father time could definitely factor into this thing.
I think we've started to see a couple of chinks in the armor, too. He still reads the defense relatively well, but I just don't, he wasn't the same way he was in 2017. But then again, I've already staked the claim that if this team's run game gets going, this can go down as the best team of all time, without Gronkowski. And without Brady playing at the level he did in 2017, 2016. It's fascinating, though. And the NFL, like I said, like you and me have outlined, is a week-by-week kind of thing. And the storyline changes every single week.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. That's for sure. It does, it definitely is one of those situations, something that does change on a, so. All right, with that said, okay, interesting debate for sure. So, meanwhile, we have Tom Shanahan on the line. Tom, thanks for being on the Sports Exchange.
Yeah, no problem. I was a little confused. I thought you were calling me.
No, not at all. No, we're on live, so that's okay, Tom. So let's go over a few things while we have a few moments, okay? We're good. Glad you're on the air, okay? We'll talk about your promote your book, The Ray of Light. Tell everybody what they have to go ahead and look for. Why is it a good buy?
Well, one thing, you can go to my website, which is shanahanreport.com, or look on Twitter, Shanny4055. And I have lots of links and information about the book. But what's special about this book is Michigan State's Underground Railroad teams with Duffy Daugherty is largely an untold story. People think Duffy just got lucky with a couple of players, but he actually had a long relationship with the black high school coaches during segregation in the South, and they trusted him for putting on clinics in the South, and they would send him their players, guys that turned out to be college football Hall of Famers like Bubba Smith from Texas, George Webster from South Carolina, and then Gene Washington also from Texas, Jimmy Ray, who was the first black quarterback from the South to win a national title on the 1966 team, and then went on to a long coaching career in college and the NFL. So there's really no other story like it. There are a lot of myths about USC and Alabama, particularly about Bear Bryant, because the truth is Bear Bryant dragged his feet on segregation. So my book tries to set the record straight on a lot of things and give credit where it is due to Duffy Daugherty.
Very good. All right, well, you live out in ACC country, so we'll give you an opportunity to talk ACC football. Okay, but before you do that, I just want to let everybody know that I met Tom Shanahan up in North Carolina at the National Sports Media Association banquet and awards dinner. We struck a very good friendship. Of course, seeing a guy wear a Michigan State Spartan shirt and me being from the area didn't hurt matters any either. And Tom, just so you know, is going to be a regular on the program. He'll talk about all ACC sports, Army, Navy, and all the military academy. So that'll give you pretty much an overview of what he does. We'll talk about ACC basketball on Thursday. Okay, but meanwhile,